Korach actually offers us a very deep meditation, we can say, about the topic of equality versus hierarchy. And that's what we want to talk about today. We want to go very deep into understanding what is the essence of the age-old debate, which is being reincarnated over the centuries and over periods of civilization and times in many, many different ways, not just politically, spiritually, economically, psychologically. There's a truth or a way of looking at the world through the prism of equality, which equates everything. And there's another opposite perspective that focuses very much on hierarchies, and there being a sort of vertical line, a vertical ladder of steps and levels, and that marks people and modes of being and perspectives according to a hierarchy. And of course, many people try to integrate them, but we can't even integrate them unless we fully understand deeply what is their essence. What is the essence of equality way of looking at things, equating, seeing everything as equal, and the other way, which is the more hierarchical, vertical kind of way. So this really is at the center of Parshat Korach, not just with the story of Korach, but actually it sort of strings together all the different things that go on in this parasha. So, but we're starting with the story of Korach. So Korach, of course, was the cousin of Moshe and Aaron. He was himself a Levite, and he was the son of Yitzhar, but the grandson of Kehat. Kehat is the grandfather also of Moshe and Aaron. He was their cousin, and he started their rebellion against them. And primarily, the focus of the rebellion was Aharon, the priest. Moses was a Levite, which in a way is lower than a priest, but he was a king. So in that sense, he was higher. That's already interesting, that we have twin hierarchies at work here, just within Moshe and Aaron. Moshe is younger than Aaron, and he's a Levite. Moshe is a priest. Right? We have a hierarchy of Kohen, Levi, Israel. But on the other hand, the Midrashim say that Moshe was the king and Aaron was the priest. And what troubled Korach was that he was envious of Aaron. He thought he should be the priest. And that's not explicitly said, it's in the Midrashim, but that was his thing. He didn't want the hierarchy. So he rebelled against both Moshe and Aaron, against this whole thing. And the Midrashim says he really wanted to be number two. He wanted to be, or in a way, it's number one, like we said, because a Kohen is higher than a Levite, higher than a Levi. So it's very interesting already. We have a hierarchy of Kohen, Levi, Israel. We have some very interesting interplay between Kohen and Levi, with Aaron and Moshe. And we have the fact that Korach belongs to the middle level. He's a Levite. He's not an Israel. He's not a simple Jew. Not only is he a Levite, he was a very important Jew. He was very rich, right? That's an expression in Hebrew, Ashir Korach, as rich as Korach. And he was from a very esteemed family. But what he said when he started the rebellion was he used the slogan of equality and democracy. And he said, Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim, uvetocham Hashem, all the congregation are holy, and within them, equally spread within them, equally manifesting within them is God. Umadua titnasu al kal Hashem. Why should you stand above or raise yourself above or be arrogant to presume to stand above kal Hashem, the crowd, or the one of the words for the people of God. And then later, in a few verses later, they say, when he's joined by these other people, they say, Ki tistarer aleinu gam histarer. Not only have you taken us out of Egypt, again, the motif of longing for Egypt, and now you presume to be our master, and they refuse to have this. And then Moshe falls on his face, which is another thing to look at. We're going to look at this soon. And he offers that everyone is going to offer incense, and this will be a kind of test to see if Hashem does it truly, as they say, favor everyone equally, or does he, as the Torah says, as he he is claiming, which is really just doing what Hashem is telling him. He's positing this hierarchy, and he's going to see which incense Hashem receives. And what happens, of course, is that all the people who were part of the group surrounding Korach, the ground opened up and swallowed them. And then it says that they came down, Chaim She'ola. They came down to the She'ol, which is to hell, or to the underworld, but they were alive as they fell, and they stayed alive. It says twice that they came down, Chaim She'ola, kind of living hell. They came down to hell, but they stayed alive. This is a very interesting image topic, just these two words together to look at this. So just this story is a story of, again, a hierarchy presented by God through Moshe. Moshe puts himself as the leader because Hashem chose him. He puts Aharon as the priest, again, because Hashem told him. And this creates the hierarchy of Kohen Levi Israel. And Korach comes with this image of equality and democracy. But what happens is that he falls down, which is a kind of illustration of Hashem in a double way, in doing two things at once. He both shows you're wrong and Moshe and Aaron are right, so there is a hierarchy, right? There was the debate. The hierarchy is true. Not only that, but you're going to identify with this vertical axis by experiencing the most bottom rung of the existential ladder of being, or once there was this expression called the great chain of being, that the whole universe is made up as a great chain of being, and the lowest rung in the great chain of being is hell, is the inferno, and the underworld. So this is where they fall. So the hierarchy is strengthened in two ways: by having Moshe and Aaron be right, and by having Korach and his congregation fall down, experience the hierarchy in the most extreme way possible by falling all the way down. Now, as the parasha continues, the truth of hierarchy is again strengthened in at least two very obvious ways. One is that following this whole incident, the tribes are all told to each one take a staff, a mateh. Mateh also means tribe. A tribe in Hebrew, mateh, shevet and mateh are all synonyms for a branch. This is again an image for hierarchy. So you have 12 branches. These are all kinds of hierarchies creating what could be seen as equality. So everyone gives their staff, and they're put into Oel Moed, into the tabernacle. But only one of them, the staff of Aaron, which is the staff of the Levi tribe in general, but it has the name Aaron on it. Again, it's the Levites as opposed to the other tribes. Aaron within the Levites, the Kohen within the Levi, within Israel. That's the only one who flowers and produces almonds. And again, this shows that the equality is, well, maybe there is some equality. We'll get to this in a minute, but there's also a hierarchy, and Aaron was chosen to be the priest, Aaron and his children, the Levites in general, and Aaron in particular. And then finally, the parasha ends with the mitzvah of matanot kohanim, the gifts to the priests, that everyone has to give ma'aser, a tenth of what they have, to the priest. And all the idea of ma'asrot comes from this parasha, from Korach. So again, this is something that everyone should give something to the priestly group and the priestly tribe. Now, if we want to understand more deeply this conflict between hierarchy and equality, these two words, then we think about, it has certain connotations. But in order to get even more deeper than that, we need to open the famous midrash that talks about, that says that Korach said some more things. And the midrash says two things. And the reason this is important for us is that it enables us to expand the understanding of what's really going on here, what's really the debate on a deeper level than what sounds like a political or economic conversation or debate. It's not just a political or a economical debate, it's a theological debate. And the theological aspect of it, or the spiritual aspect of it, becomes very clear in this midrash. So the midrash says that Korach used to mock Moshe in front of everyone by asking him two questions. The first question was, I have a talis, I have a talit, a prayer shawl, which is all made of azur, all made of the color tchelet, which is the special kind of color that the one thread of the tzitzit has to be made from this color, according to the Torah. So he says, I have a prayer shawl, a talit, which is all made of tchelet. I am so rich. I was able to buy myself a talit that was all made of tchelet. So it appears to be the holiest thing imaginable. It's all tchelet. And does it still need what the Torah says, a single thread, ptil tchelet, that I should put at each and every corner? So Moshe told him, yes, it has nothing to do with your talis being made of all tchelet or a little bit of tchelet. There's nothing to do with it. There's a commandment that says you have to take one thread of tchelet and you put it in the corner. So then Korach would make everyone hear this, and he would say, look, it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. I have all my talit is made of tchelet. I have so many threads. Why do I need this one silly thread, this one detail that I should put in the corner? It's ridiculous. Obviously, he's making this all up. And then the second example, very similar, was he said, I have a house full of books. All my house is full of holy books. Do I still need a mezuzah? Do I still need to take one scroll and one scroll and write the specific verses that are supposed to be on that scroll and put it on the door to my house if I have 10 times or 10,000 times as much scrolls in my own house? And again, Moshe's answer was, yes, you do. That's a commandment. There's a commandment called mezuzah. You have to do this. And again, Korach would say, look, this is ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense. Why do we need to add a few more letters if all my house is full of letters? So this isn't obvious that Chazal are giving us these two examples, because if the argument is about equality versus hierarchy, why are we given these stories? So what these stories add is that they show us that equality versus hierarchy is something far deeper than, again, just some political or economical debate or worldviews. Equality goes along with the idea that God is omnipresent, that God is everywhere. God is equally present everywhere. So this is the image. He's saying this when he's saying all the congregation are holy. We've all stood at the Mount Sinai. We all heard Hashem's voice. We all witnessed the opening of the Red Sea. We're all prophets in a way. God is present within us equally and manifesting equally. And this is stressed by the image of the talit made of azur, of tchelet, and the house full of books. These are all images of God's omnipresence, of something that permeates reality equally everywhere. And another deep thing we get from this is that the hierarchical worldview is, again, not just things being one above the other. It also has to do with God specifically revealing himself in one detail as opposed to another detail. So this connects to the hierarchy, because when you have the hierarchy of Kohen, Levi, Israel, it means that the Kohen is in some way closer or more connected, or God is manifested in some way more through the Kohen. The Kohen specifically is a particular channel through which God reveals himself, and then less so via the Levites, and then finally it gets to the congregation of Israel. But now we get this also in the image of the thread of tchelet, of azur, and the mezuzah. The specific thread, the specific letters and verses that are in the mezuzah are in some way reveal God's will more than the house full of books and the talit shekulat tchelet. So it's not just equality versus hierarchy, it's also omnipresence, universality of godliness versus the particularity of godliness. The particularity creates the hierarchy. Once you have a detail that's sanctified, then you have what's close to it and what's farther away from it, and that creates a hierarchy. If you have something infinite, but then you say there's a central point, there's a point that's more meaningful than other points, then this is what creates the hierarchy, because then that becomes the top of the hierarchy, and the farther you are away from this becomes the lower level of the hierarchy. So this shows us the depth of the debate here. And just to put this all in Kabbalistic terms, the idea of the omnipresence of God, this is called in Kabbalah Or Sovev, Sovev Kol Almin, the surrounding light of Hashem, or the light that surrounds all worlds. This term is a bit misleading. It doesn't surround the world, it permeates the world. It's called surrounding because we can't actually grasp it, and it's, so to speak, beyond our grasp. It sort of hovers just beyond our consciousness, but the idea is that it hovers equally above everything, just like Hashem's spirit hovered above the water. It permeates reality, not in a tangible way, but in a way that's absolutely there. So it's called surrounding, but it's really it's omnipresence. It permeates everything. And it's explained that the Or Sovev Kol Almin, the surrounding light, is present in all the worlds equally, in the world of Atzilut, in the world of Asiyah, in someone who's a tzaddik, in someone who's a rasha, a wicked man, a righteous man, it doesn't matter. This light is omnipresent. Another explanation for this surrounding, one explanation was, as I said, it's sort of intangible. It's somewhere above or beyond our reach. Another explanation is the image of a circle. Surrounding suggests circle, and circle is an image of equality, because all the points are equally distant from the center, and there's no above and below in a circle. So the what Korach is talking about is the Or Sovev Kol Almin, the surrounding light, the omnipresent light. The other Kabbalistic term is the Or Memale, the Memale Kol Almin light, the light that fills the world. And this is presented in the image not of a circle, but of a line that goes into the world. This is very much like the thread of the tchelet in the tzitzit, and also very much like the scroll that when you roll it, it also creates a sort of line. And this line, right, the two things that he mocked, and this presents God's revealed presence, and that's great. And the line is a hierarchy. In the higher world, it lights up more. In the lower world, it lights up less. The more righteous you are, the larger vessel you have, the more this light is presented, is manifested. The less righteous you are, the less it's manifested. So this is really the depth of the conversation here. Now, in order to now see what's happening in this parasha, what Korach is saying and how he's learning his lesson, we have to pause for a minute and point out the fact that many people today, and actually in all generations, well, Korach was one of the first, are very much convinced by Korach's arguments. And they feel that there's something absolutely real about them, right? And so, for example, Kol ha'edah kulam kedoshim, that everyone is holy, this is the basis of democracy, and it's something that people feel that it's right. How can someone be more above how can someone stand above others? We're all created in the image of God. So either you say this about all Jews, or today many people say this about all of humanity, or Kol ha'edah kulam kedoshim, or Kol ha'enoshut, although humanity is all holy. This sounds convincing. The idea of the talit that's all tchelet, that's also in a way myself. The talit covers the person, and so it's an image of all the soul powers within me, the parts within me, my intellect, my heart, my instincts, my drives. It's all equally holy. Many people think that. They think, why should I follow my head and not my heart? My heart is as real as my head. Or maybe I should follow my instincts. Everything is part of me. If it's part of me, it's holy, it's good, it's part of who I am. This is like the talit that's all tchelet. And the Beit Melech Sfarim, the house full of books, it's like saying, all the ideas in the Torah are beautiful, everything. And why should we create a hierarchy of mitzvot, a hierarchy of halachot, say something precedes one another? And by extension, people would say, maybe all religions are real, all wisdoms are real. I don't just have Jewish books in my house. My house is full of all kinds of books, of chitzoni books, all kinds of non-Jewish books. And I sense a presence of God in all of these books of wisdom. And so now the thing is that not only does this sound convincing to many people, but actually there's a lot of places in the Torah that really echo this, and they say it's absolutely true. As I said before, there is a truth to the memale light, the light that fills the world. That's the hierarchical light. There's also truth to the surrounding light. And I'm just giving a few examples. So there's a midrash that talks about, I'm not going to go into the story, but there's a midrash that talks about one of the partners of Korach. His name was On Ben Pelet, and he had a very interesting wife who saved him. Some people know this story for sure. And the interesting thing about this story is that, and this wife is righteous, she's amazing, she's brilliant, the midrash adores her, and she saved her husband On from going along with Korach's rebellion. And she says the same sentence as Korach, Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim, but when she says it, in the way it appears in the midrash, it's absolutely real. She says it very sincerely, very innocently, and it plays a vital role in her saving her husband. She says everyone is so holy, and it's presented. The sages don't even pay attention. They just put this verse in her words, and she's the antithesis of Korach and his wife. But she says the same verse, and now suddenly it becomes a good verse. So Chazal are saying by this that Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim isn't a lie. It's a real verse. It's a true verse. Another thing, it's explained that Korach was right when he said this. All the generation came out of Egypt were really all holy. They were all nishmot de atzilut. They all came from the world of emanation, their souls, and they were called dor de'ah. De'ah meaning they had knowledge, and Moshe gave he emanated. It comes from atzilut. He emanated his wisdom to the 70 the sages, and they emanated it further to all the people, and all of them were truly holy. Another example from another direction, the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, took the Korach's mocking expression, Bait Maleh Sfarim, and he turned it into a positive, what he called the Mivtza, right? This week we're celebrating Gimel Tammuz. So the idea of Gimel Tammuz is to be inspired by the Rebbe to continue doing what he wanted. What he wanted mostly was his Mivtzaim, all his sort of operations, the things that he wanted all his emissaries to do. One of the Mivtzaim was called Bait Maleh Sfarim, that we should encourage as many Jews to buy as many holy books and to have the house be full of books. He took this expression from Korach, who said it mockingly. So again, we have an example of something Korach said mockingly, which is used by a great Jewish figure. It turned around to be a positive figure. Another interesting thing I learned this week, the Ishbitza Rebbe, has this amazing perush for the incident in the later part of the parsha, which talks about all the staffs of the tribes. And we said that only Aharon's staff gave flowers and fruits and everything, and the rest didn't. That presented the hierarchy, right? Well, no, says the Ishbitzer Rebbe, in a beautiful Hasidic twist. He says, all the staffs gave out flowers. He finds a way to read this in the verses. He says, all the staffs gave out flowers. And there was a difference. The difference was Aaron's staff did it faster. That was the difference. And this is an amazing idea, which says, again, Korach was right. All the Jews, all the tribes, all the staffs had the potential to bring out the flowers. They're all equal, but still there's a hierarchy. One could be one step ahead of the others. He does it faster. He reads, he gets it faster, or he's more advanced. If given more time, they could get to the same place. And maybe if he didn't have this merit, he would be behind them, but he does. So there's a hierarchy, but the equality is so stressed out when you say that all the staffs gave out flowers. Another thing, the Alter Rebbe, famous Torah, says that the reason, famous question, why did Moshe bow down his head when confronted with Korach's claims. Korach's claims were absolutely wrong and false, and they were falsified the next day when the earth opened its mouth. Why did Moshe have to bow down his head and sort of meditate or do something that looks like he's doing tshuva or something like this? So the famous story is that one time some person came to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe in that generation, in Chabad also, as in other Chassidiyot, the Rebbe used to dress differently. He had white clothes, and he looked like a king. He looked different, right? The Rebbe looked like everyone, but that's in the last generations of Chabad. But in other Chassidiyot and in the previous generations of Chabad, the Rebbe would dress differently. So this one person came in, and he asked the Alter Rebbe, why does the Rebbe dress differently? And so the Alter Rebbe did like this, just like Moshe. He sort of bowed down his head. And then he told him something very simple. He told him, all the organs of the body are equally important, but the head rules over the rest of the organs. And so that's where you put the crown. So the Rebbe is like the head, and he needs to be like a crown. He's wearing a, so to speak, crown. He's dressed differently. So the guy came out, and then the Meshamesh of the Rebbe asked him, that was such a simple answer. That you didn't need to think about this answer. Why did you bow down your head? You knew this answer before he asked. It's the simplest of answers you can give. And why do you dress differently? Because you're the Rebbe, you're the head. It's so simple. Why did you bow down your head? And he told him, I did what Moshe did when confronted with the claims of Korach, because I had to make sure there wasn't some truth to what he was saying. Maybe I'm arrogant. That's what he suspected me of. He says he asked it in a way that, just like Korach asked Moshe, maybe you're being arrogant. Maybe you're raising yourself above the people. And I had to look into my heart, look into my soul, and soul search, and see if there wasn't any truth to it. I'm obliged to do this because I'm confronted with this claim. And in fact, it said even more radically that if you're confronted by the claim, it means you do have a little bit of arrogance, and that's why this person is coming to you. So this whole story is about, again, showing us that there's some truth to Korach. Korach is warning against the dangers of hierarchy, the dangers of being above the others. So that's another story that's justifying Korach. And in fact, we can say that all of Chassidut is very much about uplifting the simple Jews and saying that there's something about equality, that all the hierarchy is really illusory in many ways. So these are many examples, and we can probably find some more examples of all kinds of midrashim and ideas and Hasidic Torahs that justify Korach, that say that there is a truth to this equality, to the truth to the surrounding light that's very, very vital. So what do we do with this? So the idea is, of course, that ultimately what the Torah is saying is that it wants to carry opposites, liot nesiat hafachim, and to say that there is a truth, an absolute truth to the surrounding light. And that's why Korach was a very smart man, as Chazal say, he was a very smart man. And that's why all these sources that I just named are justifying him in a way, that there is a truth that God is omnipresent, and he's omnipresent in all the Jewish people. He's omnipresent in all, even in non-Jews, in all of reality. And a house full of books is something great. And a talit shekolat chelet, if someone merits to be so pure in all of his deeds and powers of his soul, that's wonderful, that's amazing. And all of these, but there's also a ladder. And the ladder is extremely vital and important, because if you just hold on to the surrounding equality light, if you just appreciate the fact that God is omnipresent, then you really, in a way, you gain this omnipresence, but you lose the intimate, very tense, that has a tension to it, connection with Hashem's infinity, with Hashem's being as something ultimately completely mysterious and unfathomable. And because if he's so omnipresent, you feel that he's with you in all times. He's everywhere, in the high and the low. And then you can jump from feeling extremely close to God to only thinking you're close to God, but really just sanctifying the worst things, the most mundane, secular things. there is a truth to hierarchy. There is a truth. If you're just saying God is everywhere, then you think you're appreciating God, but really you don't understand God at all, because God is something unfathomable. And this unfathomableness of God requires a ladder, requires a kind of hierarchy of stages, of that the more you climb it, the more you realize that previously you only thought you knew Hashem, but really you don't know him at all. And the higher you climb, the more you appreciate just how much unfathomable God is, right? There's a famous sentence the Baal Shem Tov quoted. He said that the purpose of all knowledge is to realize how much we don't know. And he told about two people. One of them said, it's impossible to know God, so let's not try. And he was really saying, Hashem is present everywhere and we can't understand them, so let's remain this way. But the other one said, no, let's try. And he went into the palace and he tried to go over the books and the treasures of the king and the library of the king. And he learned more and more. And he didn't know the king because the king is unknowable, but he knew that he doesn't know the king. He climbed the ladder, the hierarchical ladder of trying to grasp divinity. And through this attempt to grasp divinity or to grasp godliness, to really appreciate that you can't grasp it. So the hierarchy, even the Kohen Levi Israel, the acronym is Kli, it's vessel. It's just a vessel. And the vessel is for the light. The light, whose light is this? It's not the light of the Kohen, it's not the light of the Levi, it's not the light of Israel, it's the light of God. And even the priest, which is in the top of this hierarchy, it said, Chazal say that they only eat from the table of God, so to speak. And everything they have is they're just the vessel, they're the highest part of the vessel. So this hierarchy is needed in order to point to this infinite light of Hashem that you think you're grasping via the surrounding light, via this equality that it's present everywhere, but really you're not grasping anything. This is this is a light that because it equates everything, ultimately it can turn everything to be equally meaningless. If everything is meaningful, then in a way everything is meaningless. And in order to things to have meaning, you need to create a hierarchy of things that are more meaningful and less meaningful, that are more holy and less holy. And as you climb this, you really gradually grasp how much God is truly something infinite and unfathomable and mysterious, and you're gaining this intimate, close connection to God. And now the thing is, and now we're getting to the really the punchline of all this story. And the punchline of all this story is that if we go into Korach's psychology, what made him shun this hierarchical aspect of the truth and present himself as this champion of equality that wants to show that God is everywhere? If we go into his psychology, we see that very, very interestingly, he wasn't true to himself, to what he said, and he didn't come from being so anti-hierarchy and so pro-equality, but quite the opposite. It came from being in the middle of the hierarchy, or quite high in the middle, but quite high in the middle, and taking this hierarchy very seriously, but in the wrong way. He took it as a human hierarchy, as a social hierarchy, and he kept asking himself, where am I in this hierarchy? And it was a very, put it simply, it was a very much elitist thinking. Simple people, simple Jews, sometimes even simple non-Jews, have no problem with the hierarchy. They have no problem. A simple person knowing that, and that knows that he's simple, that knows that it has this image that I'm no one special. He has no problem to find a teacher that's above him and say, teach me. He has no problem believing that God is the king of the universe, and he's not just omnipresent, he also gave a particular Torah with particular mitzvot, with the mezuzah and the tzitzit, and he gave all of this. It's very intuitive for someone who feels himself to be part of this equal or simple basic level that's below this ladder. The more you feel this way, the more you feel humble and lowly, the more you don't have any problem with there being specific commandments, with God revealing himself in particular places, and in particular people who are the rabbis and the rebbes and the leaders of the generation. And you come to them, and you can see this. I just heard this week something very interesting, that in Iran had this big Muslim revolution, right, in 1979. And then this Muslim group came to power, and they're very much anti-Semitic, and they hate the Jews, and they hate the state of Israel, and all this. But I was told that they don't represent the simple people, the simple Iranians. The simple Iranians have a huge admiration for the Jewish people. And they go and daven, they go and pray and ask for help in the tomb of Mordechai and Esther. And also there's another holy site there, which is the tomb of Serach Bat Asher. That's also in Persia, in Iran. And that's a holy site for the simple Persians, the simple Iranians. They admire this very much. And the thing that caused Korach to not appreciate this was not that he was really in favor of this equality. He was very arrogant. And he had this kind of very, not in the sense that he was cynical politically or manipulative. He was very, very smart. He was so smart. He was such a philosopher in a way, we can say, right? Chazal say that he was very smart, and it was unlike him to believe in such nonsense. That's a saying by Chazal. He was so, and the thing is that this shtut requires you to be a little, rejecting this shtut or believing in the hierarchy of Moshe and Aaron and of the Torah and the specificity of the Torah. This is what we call today, in Hebrew it's called Chochmat HaMonim, the wisdom of the masses. It's simple folk wisdom. It's something simple. And he was overly philosophical. He was so philosophical. He said, we've got this everywhere. It's impossible for him to be in one particular place. If everyone is holy, it's impossible for one person to be somehow above the others. And what he needed was to identify with what we call Amcha Yisrael, with the simple Jews, to really go with what he said. He said, Kol ha'edah kulam kedoshim. Okay, so put yourself next to all the simple people and see what they're saying. They don't have any problem with Moshe and Aaron being on top. If you really want to be, to represent to be a populist, to represent the crowd, to represent everyone, then be with them. He wasn't with them. He was above them. He was a philosopher. He was in this ivory tower, having all these philosophical, mystical ideas about God's omnipresence. And he alienated himself, or he was alienated to begin with, from the simple, intuitive belief that God is not just omnipresent, he's also revealing himself via this vertical line of teachers and rabbis and specific truths and all of this. And we see this amazingly, beautifully, in the verse that he says. He says, Kol ha'edah kulam kedoshim, all the congregation is holy, u'madua titnasu al kal Hashem. He's using two words, Edah, which is congregation, that's how it's translated, and kahal. Kahal is crowd. But the thing is that these particular terms are very specific. They have specific meaning. He doesn't think in specific terms. He's a philosopher. He likes abstraction. He uses them as synonyms, but they're not synonyms. And they refer to two different things. And the third term is missing. So what do they mean? Edah is the same letters as de'ah. The first term he uses is kol ha'edah kulam kedoshim, congregation. So congregation is edah. Edah is the same letters as de'ah. Right? We said that all the generation coming out of Egypt were dor de'ah, a generation of knowledge. So edah, this particular term refers to the highest level of the Jewish people, the intellectual level, the cognitive level, edah. Then he uses a second term, madua titnasu, why do you raise yourself above kal Hashem? Kahal refers to the emotional level, the second level. In a way, the first level is like the Kohen. That's what he wants to be. He wants to be a priest. So he's using edah. And then he's talking about kahal. Kahal is like the Levites. That's the second level, the level of the heart. The Levites are singing from their hearts. It's an emotional level. And that's where he's at. So he's at the level of kahal, and he wants to be at the level of edah, which is also de'ah. So it's the intellect and the heart. But there's the most important term he doesn't use, and which he should use because he's such a Democrat, he's such a populist. The third word is, of course, am, people, nation, the simplest word, am. Why are you using these lofty intellectual terms or high terms of Eda and Kahal? There's a simple word. Use the simple word. You're talking about the simple Jews. It's called Am. Am refers to the third level, which is the level of instinct and behavior and gut feelings. And this is the simple Jews. This is Israel, Am Israel Chai. So this is the Am. And Am is the lowest level. It's not the level of the intellect, Eda. It's not the level of the emotions, Kahal. It's the level of again being simple, and it goes together. The word am is sometimes interpreted as referring to, we have this term, smoldering coals, gechalim omemot. Amum is fuzzy or vague, or in this case, smoldering coals. It blurs. And why? Because the simple people, they get the least understanding of what God is. But on the other hand, in a way, they're the most important. It says that en melech belo am, there is no king without a people, and the word used is am. So this term am is the simple level, the basic level. That's the level he's alienated from. He doesn't use this word. He uses Eda, he uses Kahal. He doesn't use am. He's a Levite, and he's arguing with somewhere between the Levite and the Kohen. And he's talking about this tension. He's disconnected from simple Jews, from simple truths that simple Jews appreciate. So that's really the psychology of Korach. And now we can also understand his punishment. The punishment is he needs to know that he's talking about the simple Jews. He's talking about the Am, but he doesn't use their language. He doesn't use the word Am. And he's really very much on the hierarchy. So he should realize that he's on the hierarchy, but he should experience the bottom of it. This is why the ground opens up, and this is why he falls down. He falls down in order to experience the humility and lowliness of all the simple masses, the simple people that he presumed to speak in their name, but really he was totally alienated from them. And there's a famous verse in Psalms, in Psalm Kuf Lametet 139, with a very important Hasidic word, and it connects to this Sheol, this underworld that he fell into. The verse says, "Imesak shamayim shamata ve'atzia Sheol hineka." If I go up to heavens, there you are, and if I go down to the underworld, here you are. And there's the famous, very deep Hasidic explanation for this verse that makes it very special. And it says, "Imesak shamayim." If I go up to heaven, shamata, you're always there, far away. Esak also suggests maskanot, answers. You're in the world of answers, of certainty. God is always far away from you. You never really grasp. You only think you grasp Hashem, but because you're so much in the heavens, your head is in the skies. You're a philosopher, you're a mystic. You think about God's omnipresence, you don't understand anything. But if you go down to the Sheol, to the underworld, and here Sheol also means, the root also refers to question, as opposed to Esak Shamayim, which is maskana and answer and certainty. Atzia Sheol, Atzia is Hatza'a, proposition, again, something that's doubtful, and Sheol is a question. If you're willing to be in the lower places, in the dark places of uncertainty, Hineka, God is there in a much more concrete way, that you're able to really connect in a deep way with him, in an intimate way, in an I-thou way, which you don't get with an omnipresent God who's everywhere. It's davka through the particularity of the revelation of God, through the Torah, through Moshe and Aaron, through this vertical line, and you have to be at the bottom of this line to be humble and modest and lowly and learn from those above you. That's how you can climb this ladder. Then God becomes present. Hineka, you're here in my life, existentially meaningful to me. I experience you as something that I need and want, not as some vague philosophical, mystical idea that's omnipresent. I need you, and I need my Rebbe and his Rebbe and his Rebbe all the way up to Moshe to give me this experience of being connected and needing you. And the most beautiful thing that tops all this off is that if we take the word hineka, here you are, right? That's at the end of this sentence. Atzia sheol, I go down to the underworld, into being at the lower level, the lowest level of the lowest rung of the hierarchical ladder. Hineka, here you are, God. These three letters, they permute to create the word Kohen, the top of the hierarchy. Hineka is Kohen, same letters, beautiful, amazing. And the idea is that it's Davka, the people at the bottom who don't presume to be philosophers or mystics or to speak in such high words as Kahal and Eda. They belong to the Am. They're the simple Jews. They have an intuitive understanding that I need the Kohen in order to experience the Hineka. I need the Kohen, the priest. I need the hierarchy. I need the person at the top of the hierarchy, and his King Moses and the Levites below him and all this. I need all this hierarchy because that helps me. That makes God's presence something meaningful in my life, right? It's very simply put, this is the Chosid that says, God is everywhere, but I have to have the connection with my Rebbe. This is, again, the week of Gimel Tammuz. I need a connection with my Rebbe in order to feel the Hineka. The Rebbe is like my Kohen, is like the top of my hierarchy, but I have to have him. I know God is everywhere, but I want to be connected to God. I need to feel him as Hineka, as being present in my life, and I need a Kohen, a priest, someone at the top of a hierarchy, to give me this experience of Hineka. So the ultimate message of this this whole shiur is that if someone is having a hard time with the specificity of the Torah and the hierarchy of the Torah, the fact that the Torah says that there's a Moshe, there's a Rebbe, and there are other people that are closer or farther away from it, that there's a hierarchical element to Judaism, and the people have a hard time with the specifics of Judaism because they feel God is so omnipresent, we don't need this mezuzah or this tzitzis or all these particular things, or they have a hard time with Judaism being above other religions, presenting itself as the only true religion, and saying that other religions may have sparks of truth in them, but they're not God's revelation in the same way that the Torah is. And you could think you need to argue with them theologically and spiritually and philosophically, but that's really not the thing. They have to go down. They have to connect to the simple intuition of simple Jews, and not only simple Jews, sometimes even simple non-Jews, like those Iranians that are going up to the tomb of Mordechai and Esther in Serach Bat Asher, and they're able to recognize the fact that there's something unique about Judaism, there's something unique about the Jewish people, there's something unique about the Torah, there's something unique about Moshe and the Rebbes within the Jewish people, and in the specifics of the Torah and all this, it's just very simple intuitive knowledge that it's part of our faith. And when we saw the tearing of the sea, it says, "Vaya'aminu b'Hashem uveMoshe avdo." The Jewish people believed in God, who's the creator, the omnipresent creator, but they also believed in Moshe. It's the same kind of belief. I believe in God, and I also believe that there's Moshe and Torat Moshe, and the hierarchy that comes from Moshe and all this. And the final touch to all this story is that there's a midrash that says that one of the rebbes of the sages, he once met this very simple Arab, very simple non-Jew Arab, and he told him, "You want me to show you the descendants of Korach?" It was this non-Jew who knew the location of the descendants of Korach, who went down to the underworld and stayed alive. And he took him to a certain place with crevices and smoke coming out of them. And then he told him, "Listen closely." And he heard them singing, "Moshe v'Torato emet." Moshe and his Torah are true, are real. And it's very beautifully, this is the simplest of people in the world of Chazal. It's this random Arab that's able to find these people and hear them. And if he hears them, he also hears the truth of what they're saying. When they reached down, Korach and the children reached the underworld, then they found the Hineka, the truth of God as it presents itself via the Torah and the hierarchy of the Kohen and of Moshe and of the specifics of the Torah, so that they were able to say, and they're listening, just imagine this, they're at the bottom, they're in the underworld, in this infernal place with fire, and they're singing from this bottom, simplest of places, that's the most connected to our fragility, to our humanity, to our earthliness, to our physicality. They're saying, Moshe emet v'torato emet. It was such a lofty, mystical, philosophical, ivory tower idea that we had before, that if God is omnipresent, that's the end of the story. And he doesn't reveal himself in a particular Torah and via a particular person. Now that we're down here in the underworld, we know this. We could have known this before, maybe. Now we regret this, and we know Moshe v'torato emet, or in another version, Moshe emet v'torato emet, two versions to the story. So this is our exploration of Parshat Korach and of the depth of the debate of equality versus hierarchy that plays itself throughout this parsha, and finally, ultimately going into the psychology of Korach and showing us that it was really a kind of arrogance, a kind of loftiness, a kind of being above the others that made him alienated from the simple idea that it's not enough for God to be everywhere; He needs to be somewhere in particular.